So good evening and good morning to all of you, those who are joined online, as well as those who are can see in the back in the physical mode. And welcome to the 23rd lecture, which is under the International Lecture Series on by various eminent personalities or leaders. Would say in the so on my personal behalf, as well on the behalf of Academy of Leadership at IIT Kharagpur, I welcome you all and welcome. Thank you, Captain and Mohan Ram ji, for accepting the invitation on behalf of Academy Leadership. I'd like to thank you for accepting the invitation and to give you a brief to all people who have joined online mode. It's Academy started to 2021, and then afterward we started this series, which is still continuing, which is popular among various people through global as well in India, and we're continuing this series, and this is the 23rd lecture, which is going to be talked and discussed onto the turnarounds. So this leadership, about the leadership, it is generously funded and by our distinguished alumni, Dr. Ghosh, Partha Ghosh, who has also joined here online mode and from Boston. So based on his 3PI famous model, for P for different powers and I basically for the intellect. So interconnectivity. So I think we are going to hear more on this from him on the inside. And with this brief introduction about the Academy, and you can see that we are conducting right now this leadership training program for National Informatics Center senior scientists who has come from different parts of India, and they all are right now sitting into the IIT Kharagpur and going through this 5 days leadership training program. So before we move, I request Commander Jetli ji, who is a distinguished alumni of IIT Kharagpur as well, and who is a board advisory member, to introduce our speaker of today, Captain INS Mohan Ram ji.
Thank you, Professor Varshney. I'm delighted to introduce Captain INS Ram Mohanji, whom I met just last week at Chennai when his 4th book was launched there. I'm glad to tell you that he is from the 58 batch of IIT Kharagpur. 58. Please give a big hand to him. And is a recipient of VSM Vishisht Seva Medal for the designing of INS Godavari, which was our first design ship of the India. And one fine day, he decided to shift to Mukand Steels Limited, worked there for 5 years. Then he shifted to TVS Suzuki Limited. There he designed the so-called scooty, जो आप लोग काफी घूमते होंगे जिस स्कूटी में, वो भी इनका डिजाइन है. So he turned around those companies, in fact, I'll say. And one more thing very important, when he was at IIT Kharagpur, he was a topmost student leader also, which is called vice president. In 57, 58. And by the way, I held the same position in 77, 78. He's so senior to me. Sir, I was 2 years old when you passed out from here. And I tell you, his list of awards is quite a lot. VSM from Rashtrapati, and then some medal for engineering and management from Honorary Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Manoj Joshi ji. Then IIT Kharagpur has given him Distinguished Alumni Award also. And there are many more. And he has authored a total of 4 books. And the last one is A Captain in Corporate Life, the launching of which was in Chennai just a few days back, and I was very much there. He lives in Bangalore now with his wife, who is a retired Chief Commissioner of Income Tax. Sir, we welcome you all, sir.
Thank you.
No
Can I
problem.
start now? Do I start now?
Sir, just one sec, sir. I'll request Partha Ghosh da.
Who will operate the slides for me?
Sir, just hold on, sir. We'll request Partha Ghosh to say a few words. Partha Ghosh da.
Yeah. So,
Thank you. I think it's what a privilege to be with someone as distinguished, as legendary as Captain Mohan Ram. So thank you very much for joining us.
thank you very much. You're very kind.
Greetings from Boston. to all of you. It's absolutely a great privilege, someone who's navigated through life, not only on the seas, but in different companies. And every company you have touched, you have had a tremendous impact. I had the privilege to hear about you from Viren Shah, who was involved in Mukand Steel. And since then, obviously, I have read about you, learned about you, which is absolutely a privilege. I think it's a distinguished honor to welcome all the participants today, and I've just spent a couple of minutes to introduce the Academy. The Academy of Leadership we view as a dynamic movement. It is not a static body, it's a dynamic movement. It is organic, it is biological in nature, and it is our hope this academy, which integrates both Eastern and Western philosophies, will create a new model of leadership which the world is desperately looking for. As you know, there's a lot of leadership crisis across the world, from corporates to politics to government. And it is time that we launch the movement. We have launched it, but we are at the very early stages of development in taking this movement forward. Just a couple of points about the movement. The basic philosophy is that we believe the world has to move from zero-sum game to a plus-sum game. And that's where I think we, particularly building on the Vedic philosophy, could make a big difference and introduce to the world a model which is beyond what we have seen from Harvard Business School or Stanford, a model that creates a new type of enlightened leaders. So the fundamental spirit of that is to create a new kind of world where the power of self-interest, which was triggered by Adam Smith, as many of you know, we can switch to power of self-expression with the spirit of selflessness. That's point one. The second point to keep in mind, for a long time, thanks to Charles Darwin, we talked about survival of the fittest. We want to switch to fitness of nature so that multiple species could survive. Now the world is talking about it. The inclusivity will be very important. And the final point I want to make, and I'm looking forward to Captain's words on this, wisdom on this, how to switch from a mechanistic model of leadership, a hierarchical model of leadership, to what I will call the biological model of leadership, where each and every organ, each and every cell in the system can play important role, not as subservient to any cell, but as partners to every cell. And fortunately, as you know, in the spirit of Vasudevam Kutumbakam, Vedic philosophy has celebrated this concept of one humanity, a humanity of relationship with nature. So this is the movement, Captain, and your words of wisdom will only enlighten us to take this movement forward. So thank you very much to everyone who has joined from all over the world. Again, greetings from Boston. It's early morning here, not too early. It's 8 o'clock, and it is evening time yours. And I know there are individuals from Europe and Japan has also joined this meeting. So thank you very much, Captain. It's all yours.
Good evening. You gentlemen have left you with a big risk. You're getting an old man 1 hour to talk and a captive audience. I think I warn you, you're taking an unconscionable risk. I thank you, Professor Ghosh, for very inspiring words about the evolution of management and the new paradigm which you're suggesting. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me an opportunity to share my experience of leading companies in difficulties and then succeeding somehow with the help of others. I must make one point very clear. I actually spent in corporate leadership only 12, 13 years. First 25 years, I worked as a naval architect. I was designing warships. I designed Godavari. I designed the Coast Guard ships. I did offshore supply vessels. And I was what the Greek philosopher called Aeschylus, the hedgehog, who knew one thing and that thing very well. That was warship design. In 1964, I went through a midlife crisis. You can call it male menopause. when people start getting funny ideas and want to do crazy things. In some of the advanced nations, people abandon their families and go with others. I am not that adventurous. In any case, my wife was earning more than me. I was dependent on her. She was in the Indian Revenue Service. So I decided to make a career shift from a hedgehog who knew a lot about one thing, decided to become a fox who knew a little about many things. Decided to go into general management. I was 48. My children were school and college. Our savings were very meager. It was a crazy risk to take. My only fallback was my distinguished wife, who was an officer in the Indian Revenue Service. At the worst, I can be a Garjamai and depend on her. With that confidence, I went to private sector. I joined Mukand, and let me go through can you have the slides on, please? No, I think I'll do without the slides. You can see slides. I'll run through my career. I moved from ships to steel, to scooters, and finally sustainability. I turned around 6 companies with no prior experience and 0 domain knowledge. And I'll follow up with some case studies of corporate turnarounds and some general conclusions on leading troubled organizations. And finally, a Q&A, which is going to be a bit of a risky affair because my hearing is not great. I may have to have the questions in writing, or I'll get my wife here to listen to the question and reply. Let me run through my career journey. I started working in 1958 and retired in 2020 May, nearly 62 years. I was a lecturer in IIT Kharagpur for a year. I found out that the pace of life and the type of work did not suit my temperament. Things move at a glacial pace in the academic world. It's like watching paint dry. I'm a damn impatient guy. And in the interest of my own sanity and the welfare of my students, I decided to quit teaching. And I applied for jobs outside and scholarships abroad. I got a full scholarship to MIT Boston, and I was selected for the Indian Navy also, construction branch. Mr. Nehru had given the convocation address a year earlier, and he asked us to serve the country. I must say many of my colleagues, including me, from IIT Kharagpur, joined the Indian Navy, Army, and the Air Force. If you'll see the early batches, large number of people went to the armed forces and to government service, and refusing opportunities abroad. I was in the Navy from 1959 to 1979. In between, I had a 4-year training in UK in warship design and 1-year attachment to the Royal Navy. I was privileged to work on major modifications to India's first Indian built frigate, Nilgiri, and modified the flight deck arrangements to suit an Indian helicopter, indigenized the air conditioning, and made the ship much more Indian than the Royal Navy would credit for. And many times we had to overrule the suggestion of Royal Navy and take risks and go ahead, for which I am grateful to my seniors. In 1975, I had the golden opportunity of my life to lead the design of India's first missile frigate, INS Godavari. It was an amazing ship built with a shoestring budget. It combined Soviet weapons and Western hulls and Western underwater weapons in one design at the height of Cold War. It was a big risk which the Indian Navy took. And again, I'm grateful to the senior officers who reposed faith in a young commander and gave him the go-ahead. I finished the design of INS Godavari, worked in the naval dockyard for a couple of years where I repaired ships and led a large number of workmen. That was my first exposure to labor in large numbers. Then I went on deputation to Mazagon Docks Limited as the head of design department. Again, I continued in design. In 1984, I joined Mukand. Mukand Limited was a conglomerate which had 4 divisions: construction, machine building, foundry, and steel plant. The construction division was a minnow with 1.5 crore turnover and making losses consistently. Mr. Viren Shah met me, he liked me, but he was too sensible to offer me any running organization making a profit because a total novice and I could make a mess of it. So it took the easy way out, gave me the construction division to run. In 1 year, I was able to turn a profit and make the construction division a viable division, get a healthy order backlog. Just as whenever I turn an organization, I'm taken away from this and given to something else which is sick. That is my kundali. I can't help it. I was asked to run the foundry. Mukand Foundry was a great organization, started in 1935, but it had fallen in rough times. It was totally dependent on orders on railways, and the orders had dried up. The foundry was making losses. My first job as the general manager was to go with Rajesh Shah and to meet the Minister of Industry in Sachivalaya and ask for permission to close the foundry. The workman said, this is a boom and bust business. You may get order again and they can make money. And they protested. The minister naturally overruled us and I was asked to run the foundry. As luck would have it, the railways came with a huge tender. We got a large order, but we are asked to deliver castings for Casner bogies for coal wagons at a rate of 40% higher than the company had ever done in its existence. So this is a huge challenge. And I didn't know a damn thing about foundry, but I knew whom to pick and whom to listen to. I had a young industrial manager, Mehta, asked him, go through this whole process. Tell me which are the one or two bottlenecks which we tackle, we can improve. We found there's only one bottleneck, making moldings for the big castings in a machine called Herman machine. It was operated by 12 workmen in 3 shifts, and they were holding the company to ransom by low production, and that was really the limitation for the foundry's production. So I decided we must break it. So Mehta and I concocted an idea of getting 4 young apprentices from a foundry technology school nearby, training them and showing that the production can be made double of what these guys were doing. It was a big risk. They could run physical violence also. These 4 boys came and they started working. First week, they produced rubbish and the workmen were laughing. But within 3 weeks, they started producing 50 castings per shift, while the workmen were doing 15 and 16. So I broke the nexus and the production went up. Over the next 2 years, the foundry completed the order, doubled its turnover, made its highest profit in the history ever. But the foundry was always living precariously. I told Mr. Rajesh Shah and Mr. Viren Shah, this cannot be sustained because the railway may someday decide to stop giving orders. Then you can't go through this process. I think the foundry is a threatened species. And unfortunately, as I forecast, a few years later, Mukand had to close the foundry and they converted the land to real estate in Kurla and moved to Kalve Total. But I had a shock of my life in 1977 when Mr. Rajesh Shah came on a rainy evening to my house and said, Captain Mohan Ram, I wanted to run the steel plant. The steel plant was then 250 to 300 crores turnover. It was the flagship of the company. I knew damn all about steel. I told Rajesh Shah, are you crazy? I mean, I don't know anything about steel. And this is your cash, this is your lifeline. You're giving it to me. He said, I've got a lot of people who know how to make steel. I want somebody who knows how to make money. And the 2 jobs you have done, you have made money. I think you've got the Midas touch. So you better come here. So I joined the foundry. There are other complications. The foundry was in Kalwa, which is beyond Thane. And I was living in Malabar Hill, where my wife had a quarters in atomic energy. It was a 50-kilometer commute, which took 2.5 hours each way. And my wife said, this cannot go on. You come home alternate days. You spend alternate days in the plant. So I spent alternate days in the plant. And what I worked use my crude naval, I worked my bloody ass off the first few days. I used to pour through books in the library I located a youngster who would teach me about steel. I would walk around the steel plant and learn the business. And like everywhere where I go, one thing I do, I look at what are the discrepant events, what are the irritants, what are the difficulties which people take as a given, and which, if they overcome, can make a total difference. If you want to say most inspiring example was that of Taiichi Ohno, who discovered single minute exchange of dies when he was not allowed to buy a new machine when he was heading a Toyota plant in Brazil. Now, I found the steel plant was having a good furnace, but was not producing enough. There was a problem of crane capacity. I debottlenecked the thing. I'll go through it in detail later. Increased turnover by 50%. And I think I was accepted in the steel plant by then. Then in 1989, my wife had to move out of Bombay because she'd been in Bombay for 12 years. And government rules demand at commercial level, she had to move. In a reversal of Ramayana, in this case, Ram decided to follow Sita. I had to go where my wife was getting a posting. I didn't want to stay alone at the age of 52, 53. So at that time, Mr. Venu Srinivasan, who was heading the TVS Suzuki plant, heard about me from Mr. T.K. Balaji, chairman of Locus TVS, and said, hey, Balaji, this Mohan Ram is your brother-in-law. He's supposed to be turning around things. I need this guy. So he came to Bombay and asked me to join the steel plant. I was very hesitant because TVS Suzuki turnover was 130 crores. The steel plant was 400 crores. I was going to a smaller job. But I joined them and I stepped into a hornet's nest. The day I joined, there was labor trouble. Within 1 month, I had dismissed 3 people for serious misdemeanors. Then 2 months later, the executive buses in which we are traveling to office were waylaid by a mob, and one bus was torched. I was in the second bus. They were looking for me. Their aim was to finish me off that day. I think my wife's, what they call Mangalya Balam, was what saved me. And I declared a lockout on 27 February 1990. The lockout lasted 100 days, and we opened in early June. And during this time, the company was losing money, loss of market share, and it was considered a basket case. We tried to cut down expenses and all, but it was like swimming against the tide. To add to our woes, in September 1991, Mr. Saddam Hussein decided to march into Kuwait. So the bottom fell off the two-wheeler market because petrol was rationed. Even our mopeds, which our cash cow stopped selling. So we had to have a major problem. We embarked on severe cost-cutting measures, right sizing, operations, etc. We are guided in this by late Lord Professor Kumar Bhattacharya, a distinguished alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, who was 3 years junior to me. I had the privilege of ragging him as a senior, but then he ragged me when I was president, when he gave advice, because he asked us to cut 25% fixed costs in 12 weeks. Otherwise, your company won't survive. Everybody was silent. I asked Bhattacharya, look here, I am 5 foot 11 inches tall. I weigh 80 kgs. You are my doctor. You asked me to lose 5 kgs in 12 weeks, I can do. You're asking me to lose 20 kgs in 12 weeks. Is it feasible? What are you talking about? He just poked me in the ribs and said, Captain Mohan Ram, suppose I'm your doctor and I tell you got terminal cancer. You won't survive 12 weeks unless you lose 20 kg. You will lose 20 kg. And he said, your company is having terminal cancer now. You have to do very drastic things. There's no other way. And I asked him, how do I do it? He said, that's not my job. That's your job. I have found out what's wrong with you. How to do it, you guys have to figure it out. You report to me once a week what's happening through Venu, and believe it or not, we did it. We did it in 16 weeks. And we turned We reduced the cost by 20%, brought break-even level down. In 1992-93, we made a small profit. Then within 2 years, we wiped out accumulated losses. In a moment of idiotic devotion, I prayed that I will shave off my head in Tirupati if we wiped off the losses. When we wiped out the losses, I had to keep my promise to Lord Venkateshwara. So I climbed the mountain and shaved myself. My wife was very worried hair may not grow again. Fortunately, it did. And by 1995-96, the company made bumper profits. A company which was in the brink of Chapter 11, brink of insolvency in 1989-90, 95-96 won the National Productive Council Award for Productivity, National Institute of Quality and Reliability Award for Quality, and the Economic Times Harvard Business School Alumni Award for maximum shareholder value returns. So I was on top of the world. Then I had a shock. Mr. Venu Srinivasan said, I'm giving you another job. You're moving out. I said, why? He said, you are 60. The company policies, people retire at 60. I said, but you have been flexible in so many. He said, look here, Mohan Ram, the company has reached a steady state. You're a military guy. You are only happy in a battlefield. Now it requires a different kind of temperament to lead the company. It requires somebody who do day-to-day operations, improve things steadily and whatnot. You're too impatient, and I don't think you're the right man for the job. I give you 170 crores. I want to build a plant in Mysore within 2 years. I was a director of projects. So my history has been, I inherit sick companies, I make them healthy, and then I'm kicked out. I go somewhere else. I mean, that's the way I think I'm programmed. Anyway, I set up the plant within 2 years, on budget, on time. And today the plant produces 1 million vehicles a year from Mysore. I'm really proud of the plant. And then in 2001, I was redesignated as a full-time consultant. No operational role. Look about future technologies, advice on product development. I developed the company's first prototype three-wheeler and electric vehicle. Today, we are making 15,000 three-wheelers, and we are number 2 in the country in electric vehicles. We are growing very fast. Of course, the vehicles are very different from the prototypes which I made, but it was just to get into that. During the turnaround, I forgot to mention TQC, which Venu drives, and he's the grandmaster of quality, was the real mantra which turned the company around. For that, I take no credit. It was entirely Venu Srinivasan. We just carried out instructions, his vision and his drive. And around 2003, as I was getting on in years, I thought my life may end soon. My mind turned towards recycling of end-of-life vehicles. I thought, by God, this country is producing refrigerators and cars and buses and all in thousands. Nobody thinks about them at the end of life. So I started analyzing what is happening to the end-of-life vehicles, and I found nothing was happening. So I started actively analyzing the situation in India, became a kind of evangelist for three-wheeler. For 15 years, I had the recycling panel of the automotive industry. I set up a demonstration unit for recycling at JRC Chennai. I wrote a book on techno-economic aspects of recycling. In 2000, I led the team which drafted the draft rules which have been promulgated by the government of India dealing with end-of-life vehicles. In 2020, I retired at the young age of 84. And after that, I've been writing books. They give me a lot of fun. I don't know if the other guys read them or not, but I keep on writing them, and some idiot publishes them also. Now, let me give you a snapshot of what happened to TVS Motor. I think this slide you must see. This is slide number, I don't know. This is a slide. If the slide is projected, it'll be nice. In 1990-91, TVS Suzuki had a turnover of 130 crores. We made a loss of 5.5 crores. The accumulated losses were 11 crores, just under 50%. Can you show the snapshots? One slide only, snapshots, TVS. No, go further. Go. No, we have gone too further. Snapshots. No, go back. Go back. Go back. This is one. That's one, snapshots. Next slide.
Next.
The next slide. This 1991, our turnover 130 crores. We made a loss of 5.5 crores. Accumulated losses were just below 50% of net worth of the last 3 years. If it had crossed that, it would have been declared as potentially sick by BFR. Our market capitalization was 29 crores. By the time I handed over in 1995-96, the turnover had increased by 5 times, 650 crores. We made a PBT of 65 crores and our market cap was 150 crores. Today, and whatever happened for 95 after 96, I had no role in it except for making a plant at Mysore. It has been done by my successor, done an absolutely super job. Today, our turnover is over 25,000 crores, over $3 billion. Our profit before tax is around 2,000 crores, and our market cap as of today is 1 lakh crores of rupees. The market cap has increased by a humongous 4,350 times. I don't think very many companies in the world can take credit for that. I can take credit for bringing the patient from the ICU to the special ward to the general ward and out in the road. But subsequent improvement of the patient and taking part in the Olympics, winning the gold medal and all done by others, I take no credit for it. We can take the slide off now, please. I don't need the slide now. Thank you. Now, people may ask, how is it that people took this guy with zero domain knowledge and how did he manage it? The fact is, domain knowledge is important. Sometimes zero domain knowledge is an advantage. Because you ask idiotic questions. You think of possibilities which do not exist. And I've been a bit of an idiot myself all my life. I always say, instead of I can't, why not? When I headed Mukand Construction Division, I brought with me some experience of construction. I had some experience dealing with workmen. And I was a naval architect. And believe me, no profession has such a wide coverage of all technologies and design of a warship. A warship is a microcosm of life. People live in it, people recreate, eat. There is even a prison in a warship. It floats, it moves, it fights. It's got a prison, it's got a laundry, it's got a galley, it's got electronics, it's got propulsion. There's nothing which a ship does not have. So I believed there is no profession which can match naval architecture in its coverage. Also, it's the world's oldest profession, not the other professions people talk about. Because Noah built the ark much before some lady started acting funny. So I belong to the world's oldest profession and also the world's widest profession. So my training as a naval architect, particularly designing working in warships, gave me a very wide understanding of technology. I believe engineering is fungible. Very often we paint ourselves into a corner. We are much more than what we can be. And most of the limitations are here, not in our capability. So when I went to the construction division, I went with some knowledge. I had no knowledge of foundry or the business. I knew nothing about steel making or the business. I had no knowledge of IC engines, automobile engineering, machining, metal forming, nothing when I joined TVS Suzuki. I had an MBA degree from FFS Delhi, where I managed to get a couple of gold medals. And I took finance very seriously. So I think I was financially literate, which many engineers pride themselves on financial illiteracy. I think it is the most stupid thing an engineer can do, because ultimately money is the currency of business. And if you do not understand money, you can never be a good engineer. I had this strength. I had strong engineering fundamentals and had this crazy arrogance that I can do anything provided I work hard enough. Why was I asked to lead? When Viren Shaw met me, he liked me. He said, this guy is good. I must give him a job. But I can't give him the steel plant. He's making money. This fellow knows nothing. I can't give him the 40 crore division. I can't give him the machine building division because that's making money. The only thing I can give him is this losing proposition called a construction division. I don't blame him. If I had been in his shoes, I would have done the same thing. But to his intense surprise, I turned the damn thing around. And I did the same thing with the foundry also. The steel plant was making money, but the steel plant general manager went away, Roy. And there were a lot of very good people there, M-Techs, B-Techs, even people with diploma from Germany and whatnot. But they were all techies. No, the word techie is not, I don't mean in derogatory sense. By techie, I mean an engineer who prides himself on being an engineer and nothing else. That, I think, is suicidal. So Rajesh said, I got a lot of guys who know how to make steel. I want a guy who wants to make money. I also turned the steel plant around. I'll discuss it later. And TVS Motor Company had a leadership back home because they are really losing money. And Venu Srinivasan consulted Balaji. Balaji said, my brother-in-law is in Mukund. He seems to be doing some strange things and turning things around, and maybe he may do it. But I warn you one thing. You are a very short-tempered person. My brother-in-law also very short fuse, so you may not get along at all. So Mr. Venu Srinivasan came to Bombay a couple of times, and we ran into a hitch. He said it was not company policy to retain military ranks if you continue in TVS. I said, I'm not joining you. I said, I'm a captain of the Indian Navy, VSM. I'm proud of my rank. I'll be a captain until I die. I'll be a captain even after I die. So if I cannot be a captain, no, thank you. I don't want to join TVS. So they made an exception in my case, and they took me. A few years later, an army captain joined. A few years later, we had a company aircraft. A group captain joined. So I seeded 3 captains into TVS. I joined TVS in 1989. And how did I adjust this thing? I sought out juniors to teach me the basics. I found out people, hey, I said, look here, I don't know any damn thing about it. Please tell me. I spent hours in libraries soaking up technology and business. Worked 12-hour weeks during the early times. One thing I did, which I'll advise all managers to do, look around for the discrepant evils, look down for the irritants, for the constraints, the impediments which people take as a given. If you tackle them, I think you have won the battle. I resolved to tackle them in every place where I went when time was right. And I spent hours on the shop floor talking to the operatives. When I was in Mukund alternate nights, I used to walk to the steel plant, to the furnaces, so 1 mile away from the guest house, and actually spend hours with the melters, share tea and lemon juice with them. And those guys were thrilled. They never seen the head of the organization come at midnight and spend hours with them. And I learned the nitty-gritty of steel making from the guy in the shop floor, what the Japanese call gemba, where the rubber meets the road. That's where the real knowledge is. I worked my butt off during the early days. Now let me come to the details of the 3 case studies. I'll run through quickly. I hope I have some time available. When I joined Mukund in the Minnow division, I found it was poorly funded. It had taken on jobs in too many places, all bitty jobs. It had no equipment. It was competing with giants like Gannon Dunkerley, Larsen and Toubro, and Sapurji, Pallonji, etc. And the total turnover, 101.5 crores in 8 locations. All projects were delaying, they were making money. They're losing. They're also losing small money because the division was just ignored by top management. We had jobs going in Bathinda in Punjab, Namrup in Arunachal Pradesh, Baroni in Bihar, Visakhapatnam, Chennai, and Cochin. And I visited all the sites and studied the problems firsthand. I found out the biggest problem was we are not being given enough money to progress the projects. For construction projects, working capital is lifeblood. If working capital is not there, you're doomed before you start. So I went and argued with Viren Shah and Rajesh Shah, got money released. And I had to do a couple of unorthodox things. There's a refinery in Baroni where a union leader was holding us to ransom. A huge 400 ton converter was hanging by a crane. They're demanding crazy increases in wages. So when I went to the site, I found this very funny looking character asking me, क्या विचार है आपका? I said, आप कौन है? मैं यहाँ का नेता हूँ. नेता वैता नहीं मानता. आप यहाँ काम कर रहे हैं क्या? नहीं, यहाँ नहीं काम कर रहा हूँ. आपसे बात करने का कोई ताल्लुक नहीं. Get out. Fuck off. Sorry for the language. I asked him to buzz off. I met the general manager and told him all kinds of strange characters are threatening us. And believe me, I will close the this project and go away tomorrow. You can take penalty from me. You're not going to be blackmailed by thugs. So that night I went to bed. Next morning when I came 10 o'clock, the thing was up. The union had capitulated. Later on, I found out there were murders and all in the plant. And I was running a big risk. But I was refused to be bullied by a third-rate guy. Then in atomic energy, the job was welding high-grade steel for fast-beat test reactor. There I found there two problems. One was our site manager was not effective, and there are too many bureaucratic delays. I met the director of atomic energy, and we cut out all unnecessary inspections, completed the job. Because of that, I got a bonus payment of 25 lakhs. The division made money. I left an order backlog of 7.5 crores. Then I ran the foundry. In the foundry, as I told you, making the molds was the problem. We cracked that, and the foundry made a profit. In the steel plant, I was confronted with a bunch of highly qualified people, and I knew nothing. So within 1 year, I found that one of the equipment that the German company had supplied had an undersized gearbox because I studied the design of that. And the sales manager of the company said, "You're not a metallurgist." I said, "What I'm talking is not metallurgy, it's applied mechanics. I'm an IIT graduate. I know what the heck I'm talking about." And I went to Germany and proved to them they were wrong. They replaced the gearbox. That gave me credibility in the foundry, in the steel plant. Then I found out the big problem was they could not produce heats of more than 35. A heat is a unit of production in a furnace where scrap is charged, additives are added, then metal is melted, then it's tapped off, and again ingots, etc. are made. They're making 35-ton heats with a 50-ton furnace. I asked them, why 35 tons? They said, the crane capacity is only 75 tons, the ladle weighs 35 tons. I said, make the crane 100 tons. So the crane cannot take 100, the roof cannot take a 100-ton crane. I said, make the roof 100-ton roof. He said, if you change the roof, the company will stop for 2 months, we'll go break. I was not convinced. So I sat and I looked at it and I found the plant was running 6 days a week. 7th day was maintenance. Of course, on the 7th day, the furnace was red hot. For 6 days, hot gases were going on top. By third shift, it had become possible. I contacted Dastur and Company, famous steel consultant, asked them, can we make structures to strengthen the roof offline, weld the structures and weld them on Sunday when the plant is shut down? They said it's possible. Then I went to the machine building division. Can we stiffen the crane to take 100 tons? They said it's possible. Then they worked out a scheme of only 2 weeks shutdown, expenditure of 4 crores, and a payback period of 3 months. Rajesh Shah was excited. He's a math graduate from Cambridge, MBA from Berkeley, not a metallurgist. When he presented it to the plant, everybody said it won't work. Every man jack said it won't work. They asked, why won't it work? They could not answer. But then Rajesh Shah had the guts to overrule them. We did that. My estimate slide was slightly off. 4 crores became 5 crores. Payback was 3 months. We had other benefits which I had not calculated. Because of larger heats, power consumption per ton of steel went down. The refractory consumption went down. The whole plant had a new look. Throughput went up by 45%. So I became a bit of a hero. But it was the time I had to leave. I went to TVS. In TVS also, I'll just narrow. My lecture is anecdotal because I'm not a professor. I can't organize things in nice little packages, etc. Forgive me for that. When we reopened after the plant was shut down 100 days, I had to talk to the workmen. And that's a very crucial communication moment because it defines how the plant is going to operate. The normal thing is to mouth platitudes. Hum ek parivar hai, we are one family, this is a misunderstanding, andar pyar hai, and we will be very good and all. I said it's all BS. I told Venu Srinivasan, I am not going to do this, I'm going to tell them things as it is. He said, go ahead. This is the only time they listen to you. I told him, look here, guys. I had to speak in Tamil. I had worked all my life in Bengal and North India and UK, and I never spoken in Tamil. So to address 2,000 people in Tamil was a big problem for me. I had no certain in English, and I was ad-libbing in speaking very crude street corner Tamil. I told, look here, guys, this company has been shut for 100 days. We have lost 6 crores. We are borrowing money from outside. The survival of the company is doubtful. You guys have lost 100 days' wages. Some of you might have got into the hands of loan sharks. Our suppliers lost money. Our vendors lost money. The state government lost sales tax. The central government lost excise duty. It is lost all round. Then you may ask, why the lockout? Because of only one thing. The right of management to manage is not with the workers. It's only with the management. As long as I'm here, my writ will run. And you cannot run the company. Your job is to work. My job is to manage. If I'm a useless manager, sack me. If you're a useless worker, I'll sack you. That's the only way it plays. And secondly, we have reopened with great difficulty. What are the 3 lessons we learned? First lesson is violence does not pay. I do not scare. Your violence doesn't bother me. I've seen much more violent people up in Kalwa and in the north. Your bachus in front of me. Number 2, no outsider is going to help you. You got to do things yourself. No, banks don't give money to broke companies. Our sister companies can't. They also got accounts. They also got audit. They can't give money to you gratis. So the only way we can do is by our own bootstraps. And thirdly, all those leaders who came from outside, I use this word, they ate biryani at your expense and rubbed their stomach. Where were they during the 100 days? Did any of you give you a brass farthing? We have to give you advance to reopen it. So that is an important lesson. And second thing, if there is violence, tomorrow I'll declare another lockout. Believe me, I'll lock out. But one difference, the second lockout, this company will never reopen again. That will be the end. TVS Suzuki will be history. I'll get another job. I may get a few thousand less, I'll survive. My engineers will get jobs. Even the typists will get job typing jobs. Who will give jobs to you? If people who disrespected a great company like TVS created violence, do you think anybody will touch you with a barge pole? Think of your wife, think of your kids. Next time anybody talks, knock him off yourself. I told him, finally, I'm going to quote you from a very great leader who was not very good to India, by the way, Winston Churchill. He said, I offer you nothing but blood, sweat, and tears. The next 2 years, I offer you nothing but blood, sweat, and tears. Privileges will be withdrawn. All things will be tightened. Bonus will be minimum 8.3%. It will be president's rule. I'll be ruling. But I guarantee, if we follow disciplines and work well, this is a great company. I use the word Ponvulayam Bhumi in Tamil, which means land which will grow gold. Believe me, 3 years later, when we made a profit, Venu Srinivasan gave everybody a gold coin. And the workman came and said, I've forgotten. Workman said, sir, you said you'll grow gold, you've grown gold. And Bhattacharya's advice we followed, we turned on, and we also developed new products. I brought in cross-functional design for the first time. The scooty was designed by a cross-functional group. We brought in young girls, did a lot of market studies, and I've written it all very detailed in my book. It was a great success. We launched 3 models of motorcycles. We did a lot of things, and underpinning all of this was total quality management, which was introduced by Venu Srinivas. And I must say that, but for that, we would not have been where we are. Now, excuse me for a minute, I've lost my slides. Now, so when I took over the new plant to set up the Mysore plant, I did one thing, and one more thing I did in TVS, the power of symbolism. I put big placards, reduce cost for survival in all the plants. We wore reduce cost for survival in our name badges. When we went and met the banks, they saw this badge. We wore it as a badge of honor, not as a badge of shame. And that really made a difference. Similarly, when I put up the plant in Mysore, I made everybody in the project group sign a pledge that the plant will be delivered on time and on cost. We made all our vendors, including overseas vendors, to sign the pledge. The pledge had no legal sanctity. It had moral value, the power of symbolism. Now, let me come to this briefly summarizes what I've done. I've detailed it all in the book. I'm speaking absolutely extempore, and maybe I'm not very consistent. I don't know. I beg your pardon. Turnaround happens in 4 phases. Then you can go back to the slides now. I think that the slides will be good. Phases of turnaround. Can I ask slides? The slide is phases of turnaround. Go down. Go further down. Phases of turnaround. No, go further. Further. Turnaround takes place in 4 phases: decline, survival. This is I am now being a professor of management. I am not qualified to do this. This is my, whatever little I have learned from my experience. Then there's revival, there's continuous revival. The durations of the phases may vary from case to case. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. During declines, organizations are in a negative spiral, a vicious circle. And sales go down, revenues go, morale goes down, products become dated, markets, it's all negative. In engineering term, entropy rules and morale suffers. Some people even give up hope. An organization which is on decline can be depressing. You need a change agent to breathe life into a dispirited outfit and instill hope. I was the change agent for TVS Motor Suzuki, right place at the right time. And I can tell you that, and the phoenix rose from the ashes. To raise from the ashes, you burn first. The burning phase is the decline phase. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The survival phase, they look for an outsider. It is like an extremely sick person in ICU. The emphasis is on restoring essential functions. You're not bothered about other things. Get the BP back, get the blood circulation going down. Make sure that the oxygen level is okay. And in commercial organizations, the force has to be on cost control, waste reduction, bringing down the break-even levels. There are no sacred cows exempt from analysis and pruning. Significant headcount reduction may be inevitable. I am not trained. I was called the butcher from Bombay for some time in Bangalore, in TVS. I was not trained to be a butcher. And I was doing everything from the seat of my pants. It took a heavy toll on my health, but a job had to be done. I had to make unpopular people and product decisions. And, TVS never was a lifetime employment organization. When I said sending out people, it was something contrary. And I had to cut down people, and I had to cut down people ruthlessly. And results were slow in coming. And I was hated. The best feedback you get is from the lavatory walls of a company. The stuff they wrote about me in the lavatory walls is unprintable. I was called a corrupt fellow. I was supposed to be making money. Every motorcycle, every scooter we sold. And if I went into the shop floor, people turned their face away as if I was some kind of a leper or something like that. Next slide, please. The revival phase, you come out of difficulties, you are not fully okay yet. Then you have to prime the pump again. It's like a patient moving to general ward from ICU. Some expenditures will be restored. Advertisement sales promotes which were reduced have to be reinstated. Some plant maintenance which was delayed can be done. Look for low-hanging fruit, low investment, debottlenecking, which can give results quickly. The most important thing is small wins. Every small win, celebrate. Make people feel good. And there is one danger here. Once things are out of difficulty, people may give the go-by to all disciplines and go back to old ways. You know, a woman says no more children when she is delivering a baby. But 2 years later, again, she is another baby. This is what called prasava vairagyam in Tamil. We must not have that situation. Once you enter a discipline, that should stay for life. Kumar Bhattacharya said, when the sales go down, fixed costs must go down. When the sales go up, fixed costs must not go up proportionately. They should go up less. Wonderful advice. Next slide, please. Continuous renewal phase. This is the time when the company is back to normal. Now, underpinning all this in TVS was this wonderful initiative of Venu Srinivasan of total quality management, which I have not mentioned in my slides. It was his idea. In 1991, when we were bleeding, he told me, I'm going for Deming Prize in 10 years' time. I said, are you crazy? We can't even pay our bills. You're talking of Deming Prize. He said, wait and watch. And he did it. I had zero role to play in that. It was Venu Srinivasan. We should embark on new products. We brought out Scooty, we brought out different models of motorcycles. The focus now turns outward from tactical to strategic. Long-range planning of people, practices, and competences should be undertaken. A company which has emerged out of an ordeal of fire can face the world with great zeal, like a born-again Christian. You can convert entropy into fighting energy. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, what does a change agent do? Now, this is all gyan. It may be nonsense. It's something from my experience of talking. Best done by outsiders, no baggage. If I had worked in TVS for 10 years earlier, I could not have done it. I would have had emotional attachment to people, to things, etc. I could take decisions dispassionately. And in the early days, watch, understand issues. Your power of observation is great in the early. Then the figure and background mesh together. Then you become one of another. So people recruit similar people who will fit with our company. I think it's a wrong policy. You must recruit a few mavericks, people who will question your stuff, ask questions to understand processes and systems. I keep on look for discrepant aspects, irritants, constraints, and givens. Be prepared to challenge orthodoxy and deeply held beliefs. Mine started even with my rank. I said, I will not come as a captain. Be prepared to challenge the promoters and bosses also. And Balaji was right. Mr. Venu Suranga had many fights, but we had mutual respect. And I must say, together, we did something good. Next slide, please. Next slide. Never show fear or anxiety. Show a win mind. There are many times I was deeply nervous inside. But if I show my nervousness outside, it is contagious. So you must show. So in one month, I remember we had a review, we reached the bottom. I told people, look here, we are lucky. Now the only direction we can go with is up. There's no more going down here. And no room for consciences objectors. Now, if you have people who ask questions, it's okay. There are guys who believe deeply that what you do is wrong. That's not the way. Get rid of them. In a war, there is no room for conscience. I sent people out who questioned my methods, who questioned my approach, because I think they will stand in the way of progress. Give a reality check and communicate constantly. I held classes on balance sheet, ratios to workmen to make them understand financial difficulties. Listen and ask from rank and file. The next point is most important. Never default on payments to banks, FIs, etc. Because once that gets into the newspapers, these pink colors papers will say TVS in trouble, unable to meet obligations. And that is the end. Because once word gets out that you can't meet your obligations, you're in trouble. I had wonderful finance people, Subramaniam and Rajagopal and Varadarajan. They handled it beautifully. And there are times when we depended only on the float time between the presentation of a check and those days checks take 2-3 days to go. The float was what saved us sometimes. Build cross-functional team of doers. Look for easy wins. Low-hanging fruit to restore morale. Build and share a vision of a great future. All the time I was talking of a great company. All the time I was talking of, and when it happened, the same guy who told me I was doing foolish things came and shook hands with me. And when things happen, well, reward juniors for successes. Don't stand in front, collect all the goodies. Reward your juniors. Today, if I go to the plant, they worship me like a god. I went 3 months ago in TVS. But the same company 25 years ago, I could not even go out because the lavatory work was written nonsense about me. Don't bother about that. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, I am going to do something which goes against my grain. I don't like this 8, 7 habits of effective people, 8 and the famous McKinsey's in search of excellence, 8 things, 4 things and all. But I saw one thing which I liked and I'm going to share it with you. Leaders enhance their strengths, fix their weaknesses. 4 E's, energy, high energy levels and enthusiasm and dynamo. I was physically fit. I worked 12, 14 hours days. I had a treadmill at home. I used to do treadmill at home. I played tennis in Bangalore club and I was running this company. So energy levels are very important. When things are bad, if the boss looks tired and enervated, nothing will happen. Energize. Energize the people around you towards shared goals. And this is something which I have been very lucky. Wherever I work, I'm able to get people to buy the bigger picture and work. Edge. You must have something which differentiates you from others in measurable, favorable ways. You must have the ability to make tough yes or no decisions. Hamlets cannot turn the company around. No to be or not to be. No question of solidarity. Execute. Consistently deliver on promises. Make mistakes. Take risks, but deliver. And this is something which I have saw in a SAE, Society of Automotive Engineer, lecture to young engineers. I thought it is ideal. And this is something which I think works for me. Next slide, please. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit of a commercial pitch, advertisement, my book. I called my book a Captain in Corporate Wonderland. Title of a book is very difficult. I was thinking, I knew nothing about this thing and I was total techie specialist. So when I entered corporate world, it was like Alice in the Wonderland. She meets all kinds of strange mad hatters and rabbits and Queen of Hearts and whatnot. She drinks from a bottle, becomes small. There are many times but very small. So all strange adventures. So I decided to call it a Captain in Corporate Wonderland. The book is autobiographical format. It's a story of my life. I've written 3 books. First book was called Small Town Boy, about growing up in a small enclave in Coimbatore in young years, and the early years in IIT. First 3 by when they had all the classes in the Italy jail building, and 60, 70 pages of real what IIT was like in the early days. That was the first book. The second book was about my life in the Navy, which was called My Ship Sailed the Seas, but I stayed ashore because I was a naval architect. I never went to sea. This is the third book. It traces my change from a specialist to a generalist role. It was not an easy change. It's a big psychological change. I've described the turnarounds in detail. I have also written an annexure on corporate turnarounds. There's one more annexure on service people, how to adjust to the ethos of civilian sector when they retire. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is the book. It is available from Amazon, Flipkart, and it's also in Kindle. The Kindle edition, unfortunately, has a few typographic errors. They're not able to sort it out. This is not a management tome. It is the story of my life from 1989 to 2020. But a man spends most of his time at work and 8 hours sleeping. So to some extent, it is the story of Mukand and TVS and my experience. Now, I have no claims to be a management guru. I've read a lot about management. I did a 3-year course in FMS Delhi. I read a lot of books about leadership. One thing, I never found any useful book which tells you how to manage a company which is sinking. All management schools tell you how to do it when things are going well. I have not come across any substantive book. There's one book written by Pradeep Kanwala. I think he was a director of IIM about turnaround. It's just 40, 50 pages. It's very dense, contains good information. There's another book which I had read called Well Made in America about Harley Davidson. That was useful to me, written by a journalist. I think this book has some insights which people have to find for themselves on turnaround situations. I also believe that management schools should deal with the unpleasant topic of how to manage in difficult situations. It is not there in most syllabi. I don't know if Vinod Gupta school has it or not, I don't know. Gentlemen, that finishes my presentation and I'm open to questions. Thank you for your attention. I am not my hearing is a little impaired. I think I'll ask my wife to come here. So questions are addressed, she can hear them and I can probably answer them because I'm not able to hear very clearly what people say. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Now the house is open for any questions.
1 minute, I'll get my wife's.
Yes, sir.
Please
Thank
do
you,
not ask any questions if I can. I can hear them and answer them.
Before we start asking questions, I would like to inform everybody that here is one book which is coming out this week itself, 100 Great IITians Dedicated to the Service of Nation. Can you see this book? And the first story is Captain NS Mohan, the senior most. And this is about those IITians, 100 IITians who didn't go abroad, who stayed back in India, those who refused to be lured by the West and contributed significantly to India's growth, dedicated to the service of the nation. So the first story belongs to Captain NS Mohanji. Now, any questions by anybody? From here. Please raise your hand, those who are there. Online motor, sabko grid bana lo abhi.
We can type out the question also, it will be easier for me because I can't really hear Dr.
Okay.
Ghosh. I must apologize, my hearing is a little impaired.
Mohan Ram, I had. May I?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Raja.
please go ahead.
Did the
May I,
social-
Professor Mohan Ram?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you type the
Excellent talk. I actually empathize with you because I had the good fortune to be in the hot seat also, and of turning around 2 loss-making project divisions in a large company. And you will agree that it's lonely at the top because it's all your decisions with nobody to actually support you in those difficult decisions. I wanted to know, were the turnarounds you did surgical turnarounds or non-surgical turnarounds?
I can't hear clearly. If you can type out the question, I can answer it. Because I'm not able to make out what you're
Yeah.
saying. My hearing is impaired.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Okay,
Then
no
it's,
problem.
so I have,
I'll answer questions which are typed out and I'll come to your question later. Next question, please. Yeah,
Okay,
please.
I think, sir, it has been very good. It's really great hearing you.
Did the socialist system harm the progress of India? I am not an expert in politics. I cannot really answer this question, but all I can tell you is this. Unless you work, you cannot create wealth. You cannot distribute wealth before creating wealth. I think the French Revolution was flawed. Liberty, equality, fraternity, all three together is not possible. Because we have liberty, you can't have equality. If you have equality, you have to curtail liberties. I am not for this system or that system. I am not for crass capitalism, exploiting people, etc. But I believe it is the duty of everybody in every organization to give a fair day's value for fair day's work. If socialism allows that, good luck. If socialism means that you get things for not doing, I'm not for it. That is my, I'm not politically inclined, and generally I vote NOTA.
Great.
Next question, please.
This young man.
You weren't able to hear, so it's
You can hear now. Now you can ask.
out.
My wife can translate for please go ahead. Yeah. Hello.
My question was, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so, in the turnarounds that I did, and I'm sure you did that, were they surgical turnarounds or non-surgical? Which meant, did you have to remove dead wood?
Yeah, was it surgical or non-surgical? Did you have to remove dead wood?
Yes, I did. I think when the headcount had to be reduced, I made sure that among the executives, the non-performers were given reasonable compensation. And we, in a sick organ, we can't carry passengers. So I did do that. When you do surgery of that type with time constraints, you cut some good bone also along with flesh. So I was a bit, I guess I was a bit ruthless. But I think desperate situations require desperate remedies. So I did do the surgical correction. Yes, you are right.
Correct. Lokesh, go ahead.
Hello, sir. Thank you for the excellent talk. I wanted to ask which experience at IIT helped you to, manage this kind of sinking companies? Because some aspect of your IIT life would have helped
Not
you.
like IIT experience.
Yeah, I was a vice president of IIT in 1957-58. I probably was the only unopposed vice president in the history of IIT because when I decided to stand for election, all other candidates withdrew. The Bengalis liked me because I liked Bengali. The Punjabis liked me because I was good at Gali. But somehow, because of my popularity, I became, and there's a sudden cut. The Gymkhana budget was cut from 3 lakhs to 2.1 lakhs. And we had competing societies, cricket and literature and all. And I was very active in many fields. Many of the secretaries were my friends. I had to ration out money. So I had my first exposure to cost control and being a pain in the backside from 1957 to 58. Yes, I was very active in institute activities. The IIT did build a character and confidence. And I must also add, the Navy did wonders. So it's not just IIT alone. I think it's a IIT, Navy, and Naval Architect. It's a decent combination.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Parthoda, can we request you to sum it up?
Yes, thank you very much. What a wonderful talk, Captain. I think your navigation through seas, your navigation through life, your navigation through so many companies, turning them around and moving from negative energy to positive energy is the essence of leadership. So firstly, I would like to say that you epitomize what leadership is all about. Now, I have taken 7 messages, which is important for all of us who have joined here, including the NIC group who is sitting in front of you. The first message, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, which is if you have the spirit of learning, if you have the spirit of inquiry, irrespective of domain knowledge or not, you can take on the challenge because we learn. And in fact, sometimes domain knowledge could be disadvantaged because you come with certain assumptions. So engaging with knowledge, with a fresh perspective, has given you significant strategic advantage in all the turnarounds that you have managed. And that is life. Great leaders learn, unlearn, relearn, and you have demonstrated that. The second point, which I think comes out very clear and loud, which I think all of us should try to learn, particularly in a complex country like India. You talked about you becoming the VP of the Gymkhana Club. Punjabis liked you for certain reasons. Bengalis liked you for certain reasons. And that ability to be able to connect with different cultures, different perspectives is extremely important for a leader. And you have demonstrated that. And not only that, in dealing with workers, you have been authentic. You spoke the truth, and you have demonstrated when you speak the truth from the bottom of your heart in a fearless fashion, people would engage with you. And they did, and you turned around the company. So that's the second message, the fearlessness and the desire to remain fresh in a certain situation. The third point, which comes out very clear, which I personally believe, because like you, I spent much of my life as a management consultant, that it is not the title, it is the power of your authenticity and your freshness, fresh way of looking at a problem. That is what engages you with the problem in a very objective way, keeping aside subjectivity. Fifth point, which came to my mind, you know your currency. You know your currency. A leader knows what currency to use when. It is very precious, and you use it in the right way. When you have negotiated with Viren Shah, Venice Srinivasan, you were very clear what you could do, what you need, and what you cannot do. That ability of clarity, knowing the currency and playing the currency the right way, whether it was with the worker or with the owners of the company, you have managed that brilliantly. And that's one of the requirements of leadership. Then comes the more spectacular point, where you said, and I fully agree with you, which you, in fact, yesterday when we were having a session with NIC, actually, this morning, India time, last night, my time, I used the word, much of the leadership role is to convert negative energy to positive energy. But you have given us a better word, converting entropy to develop the fighting energy. That is extremely important. Converting chaosness, converting entropy into energy which can create a better society, better company, better organization. And the final point, very important point, as leaders, as followers, as servants, as bosses, whichever role one sees himself or herself, we go through adversity, we go through ups and downs, but great leaders maintain a posture of calmness. We cannot express any kind of negativity, however negative inside we may feel. We have to stay positive. And that is, I think, a brilliant message. And again, you have lived through. So congratulations to you. I think I would like you to join this movement. The academia started. We need people like you as a model, which the world must aspire to. I'm glad that Harvard Business School, where I'm associated with, have recognized your brilliant work. And I think more brilliance yet to come. I think you have also demonstrated, as long as you take on the challenge, as long as you play tennis, as long as you go on the treadmill, the energy level will be there. And the 4 E's that you have talked about is perhaps will become increasingly visible in our personality as long as we put in the effort. And you put in the effort and you demonstrated that it works. So thank you so much. It was absolutely brilliant. And Mr. Captain, I would like to invite you in person, either to Boston or to Kharagpur, because it seems like Boston has given you a lot of recognition, as has Kharagpur. So you have got these two places where you can always engage with, and we will be delighted to welcome you with open arms.
May I make a point? So my son did his PhD from
Yes.
Howard.
Oh,
He did his PhD. He's from IIT Madras. I am Ahmedabad and did his PhD from Howard. He currently teaches in the Rotman School, Toronto. He's a tenured professor of accounting, Partha Mohan Ram. So
he's also Partha.
yeah, he's also called Partha. And I think the Parthas of the world are formidable people. Thank you very much for all the kind words, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Partha Ghosh Academy, and also the IIT and my friend Commander Jaitley, Professor Patel, all these people give me the opportunity. As I told you in the beginning, give an old man a captive audience, you are in for trouble. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was brilliant. And look forward to seeing you. Thank you. Commander, picture or?
We'll take a screenshot. However, I would request all of you to switch on your cameras. And meanwhile, as we all switch on our cameras, I would like to thank everyone for joining in. Starting with Captain Ram, thank you very much for sharing this amazing experience. It has really enriched our knowledge and our learnings. You are a real Punarvasu, as we say. A Punarvasu in our Shastra is a person who is responsible for redevelopment or re-establishment of a place, and a Punarvas, or in fact, there is a nakshatra called Punarvasu as well, and I probably am sure something comes of those lines. So thank you very much, sir. Really glad and honored to have you as a lecturer for Partha Ghosh Academy of Leadership monthly lecture series. I would also like to thank all our regular visitors, all regular attendees who have attending this session. To start with, I would also like to thank people, our board of advisors, Commander Jaitley, for arranging this session with Captain. Thank you, our founder, Dr. Partha S. Ghosh, and our chairman, Dr. Shailendra Vashne as well. So thank you, everyone. Looking forward to see you all again for our next chapter, next series of lecture, which we will be having next month. Meanwhile, we'll just take a quick screenshot. So give me a smile, please.
Smile. Thank you.
This side also.
I'll take one more with the audience who are sitting from NIC with us as well. So
Fine, no issue.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you
Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.